Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Ms. Seisha. And with the Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we are experiencing high levels of illiteracy in our Black communities and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. And again, what makes this real reading talk is because I talk about these issues in a non-sugar-coated way, okay? We want to get to the crux of something. You know how we say in the Black community, give it to me straight, give it to me real, no chaser, just bring it, all right? So that's what I am doing for you all right? Been doing this since 2017 and still rocking and rolling. And I'm just so grateful for those of you who have been rocking with me ever since the beginning. Even though when I first started, it was definitely new in terms of how to do podcasting. It was a lot harder, in my opinion. If you were not a techie person, you didn't understand how to put all of those, do the segments and do all this, that, and the third with it. I was learning all of that stuff. Like it was OJT on the job training that I was doing, and it was just a trip. And so that's what, in the beginning, it wasn't as consistent. So I was like, man. And then I was eventually able to get with the platform Anchor. That's when I got hip to Anchor. It was a couple years later. I was like, ooh, I'm like, okay, all I got to do is just start recording, and then they're going to do all the other stuff. They're going to send it to the other platforms, and oh man. And now Spotify actually bought Anchor. So just wanted to share that with you guys. But today, what I wanted to talk about is normalizing peace. Normalizing being still. Normalizing quietness, y'all. Oh my goodness. This is something that I truly believe, and I've seen it in our communities. And when I say our, I'm talking about Black folks, us, all right, we family, our people. One of the things that we struggle with is being able to normalize that peace and that quiet and that serenity. Now, I know some of you are listening and you're like, well, you may know how to do this, or maybe you grew up in a family where that was something that was normal to you, or you think about generationally. So in our elders, in the elder Black community, especially you talk about our grandparents, me, inshallah, I'll be 50 this year. So like in my grandparents' generation, great-grandparents' generation, for those of you who still are blessed to have your grandparents or even your great-grandparents, they understand what peace is. They understand, being able to have those moments of quietness. However, I've definitely have seen more often than not, our folks having an issue with just being able to be still. And so first, what I wanted to do is talk about, number one, where that comes from. And then I want to give 3 benefits. And of course, there's a multitude of benefits of being at peace, being still, after I talk about where that comes from. So just think about this, right? Especially for those of you who live in a community where it's considered the inner city, the hood. It's not somewhere way out, in the suburbs. All right. And I'm talking and even now, sometimes, even with a lot of the suburbs that a lot of us may have been used to, those suburbs have turned into, some people have said, kind of hoodish. And you know what that means, right? That's code word for a lot of Black folks moving into the community. But I'm talking to my people. I'm talking to family, right? We have folks in our communities that we know that they look like us, but sometimes they forget that they come from a legacy of greatness. They come from a history of looking at themselves in a way where we are valuable, where we are worthy. And so when you don't have that mentality and you forget that, unfortunately, you think that being Black is equated with being uncouth, with acting a fool, with I gotta turn up, I gotta get ready to, make it pop everywhere I go. I gotta always bring the noise. I gotta, bring all of this just craziness or whatever. I can't just simply be at peace. I can't normalize that peace. But why do we deal with that in the black community? Why is that an issue? Well, anytime when it comes to stuff that we deal with in our community, that are what Dr. Joy DeGruy termed as a part of the post-traumatic slave syndrome definition, these are maladaptive behaviors that Black folks have adopted when being in a hostile environment. Okay? All right, so what do I mean? Well, so when we have this mentality of we just can't have a moment of silence, where we just can't think that it's okay to be still, whether it is by ourselves or whether we are in a group, and it has to be some type of it has to be a party moment, a party type of spirit. It can't be a thing where we are literally just, okay, you know what? We are just going to enjoy the silence of one another. Those things literally link back to that slave plantation. Let me explain. Have you noticed when you go say you on a job and you got Black folks on the job, and when the boss or the manager comes around, you have that Black person who feel like, okay, man, I gotta make sure I look busy. I gotta make sure I'm working. I gotta make sure I'm doing something. You can't just simply just be still. I'm not saying you being still and you're not, you haven't handled your business or you're not doing your work, but you always feel like you gotta be up and moving and you doing something or whatever the case may be. But that goes back to the slave plantation. Because if you weren't always busy, if you weren't always doing something, it could cost you your life. It was something that was looked at as if you were lazy. You weren't being productive. So if you're lazy, you're not being productive because you thinking that you can just sit back and be still and not do anything. Oh, please, you're getting a lash. You getting yelled at, you getting beat. You're getting beat to almost inches within your life. So if you think about this, so if you see you're on a slave plantation as a child, you see that with your mother, you see that with your father, your grandparents, you see that with your siblings. Everything is, you got to keep moving. You always got to keep doing something all the time. You can't never have that peace for yourself. Because as we know, on the slave plantation was not built for peace for our people. It was built for hostility, because those slave owners, in their minds, they said, okay, the more hostile you are, the more belligerent you are, then that's more the productivity you're going to get. We have to make sure we're on you. We're on top of you. We be rating you. We over you with that lash, because we're going to make sure that you handling your business. All of that has contributed to taking away us as Black people being able to normalize that peace, being able to normalize that comfort and that stillness. And so that's one of the sick demonic things that has happened to our people. And then over time, like Dr. Joy DeGruy and the other lady actually that she had got her information from, I think it was a Jewish woman actually, who talked about the whole epigenetics, when that Jewish woman was doing that research on Holocaust survivors and showing how the descendants of those who were Holocaust survivors and the different things that they had transferred from generation to the next generation because of the trauma that they had dealt with. And remember the Holocaust, that was what, we'll say at most, between 4 and 6 years or so. But for our enslaved ancestors, you're talking about what? Going to 400 years. And then not only the enslavement, then what came after that? The peonage system. You talk about the Black Code laws. You talk about Jim Crow, all of the systemic things that were set in place to keep us in that perpetual servitude relationship as it pertains to white folks, right? So the whole aspect of being at peace, normalizing peace, that is something that has been literally systematically torn away from our people. Because when you are able to be at peace, when you are able to be still, you are able to reflect. You're able to go inward. You're able to take yourself to another higher plane, a higher level. But also, I'm going to say this, what has happened to our people. A lot of times in our communities, that peace aspect has been taken out so that it can be a distraction of and taking you away from the trauma that you experienced, or that I have experienced, that we have experienced collectively. Because think about it, when you are at peace, and if it's too quiet, then that means now you start to get in your head. Now you start to reflect a little more. Now you're going inward. And for some folks, they don't want to do that. If you were growing up in a home where it was a lot of arguing, fighting, cussing, folks drinking around you, folks who have an addiction problem to drugs, you dealt with abuse or some form of molestation, all of these different things that have plagued the Black community in a severe way. And if you've been affected by that, whether it happened to you or the people around you and your family, you've seen that happen, you experienced that, you saw that in some kind of way, you don't want to have that on your mind. You don't want those thoughts to be, something that you want to keep just having come to the forefront of your mind. So what do? You create distractions. You think this is where you got folks who, when they blasting their music real loud. I know some people may say, well, you got them young folks, they like them loud music. No. I'm sorry. Some of that stuff, when I be hearing this loud music on an extreme level, I'm like, no, somebody, they're trying to distract themselves. It's something else deeper going on. They're trying to drown out some other noise, some other bad things that they may have experienced or things that have occurred. So that's why you see in our communities where it's a lot of times it may seem abnormal to be at peace. And what sparked me to talk about this was because when I was subbing in one of the classrooms, and I was in a high school, and I remember the kids, and usually when you are sub, you know how kids, they'll come into the classroom and a lot of times they like to be, especially they see a sub, they start getting extra loud, they want to extra kick it and all of that type of stuff, right? And in this particular classroom, you had a mixture. So it was still majority Black, but you had like some white kids, you had some Asian kids, and may have been kids from maybe like a Middle Eastern community or whatever the case may be. And at a particular point in the class, it started to get quiet in this particular class, right? Now, mind you, I'm gonna say this too. What I noticed a lot of times in the classes where it was a lot quieter was the classes where I may have seen had more of the Asian kids, or even you had some of the white kids or kids from other cultures. But when you have the kids where it's majority Black, constantly just talking, constantly being loud. Not all of them, of course, but you have a segment just being extra loud, extra noisy. And at this particular time, it had gotten quiet, noticeably quiet. In fact, I was just like, ooh, loving it, right? And then this boy blurts out, why is it so quiet? I'm like, dang it, man. Why you ruin the vibe? Come on, brother. But That's not the first time that I've heard a kid say that. And again, a black child. And I'm like, okay, so I wrote that down in my notebook. This happened April 17, 2024. And so I was like, why is it so quiet? Why is that a problem? Why can't it be so quiet? What's wrong with it being at peace? Why does it always gotta have why has it gotta be some kind of noise or something going on? And again, I truly believe a lot of that has to deal with, like I mentioned before, you talk about number one, in the Black community, we're used to it always has to be something going on. We always have to be busy, always have to be doing something, can't sit still, can't be, because when you live in a hostile environment, you're always in survival mode. And when somebody's over you telling you like, hey, look, no, you can't afford to daydream. You can't afford to just be reflective. You're always on survival mode. At any given moment, something can happen to you. Any given moment, something can happen to your child. You hyper vigilant. You like, wait a minute, you know what I'm saying? I got to make sure that ain't nobody, I got to make sure that my child is cool, because at any moment they might try to steal off my child. So I got to be ready, to protect my child as much as I can. Or you constantly always just hearing somebody getting beat, crying, screaming, or whatever, all types of torturous things happening. These are things that has been a part of that sick demonic slave plantation. And of course, they got passed down generationally to what we have today, where you have it to where you got some of our Black folks who they have not gotten used to being at peace, being still. And also too, not having that connection with your elders, because that's one of the things that we did bring, that our ancestors did try to hold on to as much as possible, was understanding that value of that elder, having that connection, trying to have a community as much as possible, even during that hostile environment. But now you look at it today, we lack in that. We don't have the connections like we used to with our elders. Everybody ain't going to Big Mama house or Medea house or Granny house or, Graham or whatever house. Nobody's doing that like they, it's not being done a lot, rather, like we would see in the past. Even when I was growing up, I remember Grandma, my grandmother's mother, Grandma Frances, and we called her Grandma. We would go over there and they would have like a big dinner at her house. So you have all the different cousins and stuff. And so again, but you have these different generations, and everybody is building community together. They're learning from each other, learning how you should be and interact with your family, all of those different things. Those are things that we don't have like how we used to. We have been inundated with a lot of noise. And unfortunately, a lot of it ain't good noise. A lot of it is bad noise. Just like right now, I can hear sirens right now. How many of us live in those kinds of communities where we're used to hearing the sirens? We're used to hearing somebody arguing and cussing and fighting, especially now that, the weather is getting nicer. Folks are going to be outside more. So that whole notion of being able to see maybe your grandmother on the porch, on the swing, she, talking to you, telling you some different stories, and just creating that peaceful environment. We don't have that like how we used to. Those days, they can be brought back, but they definitely have left us. And it has created a big challenge in which it has taken away the peace. The peace that you need in order to become the best version of yourself. Now, I want to segue into the 3 ways in which being at peace, being silent, can actually benefit you, can benefit us. And in hopes that you all will share this information to remind people of how we have the ability to take that power that we have in building the type of person that we know we should be, building the families that we know that we need, and the communities that we know that we need, so that we can start to thrive, so we can take back that power that we have instead of giving it away. All right. So the first thing, and I got this information, I had just did a random Google search. I mean, I had came up, I knew, just like a lot of you know as well, what peace can do for you, especially a lot of my listeners, a lot of my folks who are listening. You already understand a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, right? But then I have those who are listening maybe for the first time that you're sharing with somebody, and they're trying to develop these habits. They're trying to figure out ways that they can have that inner peace. They just don't know how. Or they want to learn from folks that come from their community. People, not only that we look, we can relate in terms of our look, but I'm talking about our culture, our experiences. And so the first thing that I wrote down was a heightened sense of awareness. And I got actually this information from whisperroom.com, by the way. And somebody wrote this article in 2020. And I was thinking about that, and I noticed the date, and I'm like, okay, as you know, that was literally when the height of COVID, right? So this was done May 29, 2020, this article. And during that time, that forced a lot of folks to be still in a lot of ways, okay? Because we couldn't go out and do what we needed to do. You had to develop some type of regimen where you're like, okay, well, I gotta be at home now. I can't really go out. I can't do those types of things. But even in that, again, people still don't know how to be at peace even in their own homes. And that's what I'm trying to share and impart with you guys. We have to be able to develop that on our own, normalizing peace, normalizing being still. Because I'm telling you, it does wonders for you, for your spirit, your mind, just your overall being, relationships, all of that. So the first thing they talked about was the heightened sense of awareness. Okay. So that heightened sense of awareness, that's that reflective state, right? That reflective state. So that allows you to be able to, according to the article, foster that personal growth. Okay. So you think about it. If you're always constantly having noise, you're always constantly around people who they want to talk all the time. Just like I told you with the young brother in the classroom. Why is it so quiet? You got people, why is it so quiet? Let me turn on some music, man. I need something on. I can't deal with this piece. I can't deal with it just being silent, me hearing the birds chirping. That's too much. Where the jams at? Or have you noticed with people, when it's too quiet, that's when they start to pick an argument with somebody. It's too dang on quiet. So one of the things they want to do, they want to start some ish. That's when you know somebody on some drama. It's like, because they are afraid to be with themselves. They're afraid to tap in, literally. You can even do something simple. As a matter of fact, I got to give a shout out again to my sister, Brenda. She had sent me this really short, it was one of the reel, and it talked about how, patting your chest. And we've seen, and matter of fact, I've seen a lot of my brothers do that to their sons, pat their chest, right? Patting the chest is actually, that's a calming mechanism that you can do for yourself. So say if you want to calm yourself down, you're trying to get yourself at that space of serenity, just pat your chest lightly, just to remind you, like, yes, okay, all right, let me get back to the core. Let me get back to my heart. All right, I want to be able to feel. All right, being able to feel, being able to have that inner peace. That's what being still does for you. Okay. So that's the first thing. Number two, actually, which I thought again, this is linking back to what I talked about. I'm about to say it right now. And in terms of how we was used to that hostile environment on the slave plantation, you had always had to be going, 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 going. Well, actually being still and being at peace increases your productivity. Okay. So it says, according to this article, that research shows that doing nothing, sitting still, has been linked to more production of new brain cells, which could make you more productive in the future. So literally, when you are sitting there daydreaming, and you know how we, especially as parents, how many times we've seen our kids, and I know I'm guilty of this, grew up with this as well. You see your kids just kind of, and I'm not talking about your child is on the device, okay? But say they were just, maybe they were just sitting there or whatever. And you looking like, what you doing? Why you just sitting there? You daydreaming? What's going on? It's like that actually is something that helps to, again, increase your productivity. And I remember hearing about that before, the whole daydream. Matter of fact, you know where I got that information from? It's this book called Stolen Focus. I listened to it on audio and he talked about that. Actually, how the daydreaming, that right there is linked to you being more creative and having these, coming up with these great ideas. A lot of our creators, a lot of people who are visionaries, they'll tell you, yeah, they were just sitting, they were looking around, they were daydreaming a lot. And next thing you know, they came up with the Apple iPhone, right? I mean, these are things, these basic, simple things as human beings, like sitting still, embracing the peace, embracing the quiet, actually increases your productivity. And unfortunately, this is something in the Black community that we were not able to do. When you had demons over our ancestors doing the most demonic, sick, sadistic things you can come up with, and their rationale was that, oh yeah, when I cut off your foot, that's gonna help you understand that you gotta obey me and you're gonna do more work. When I gouge out your eyes because I see you trying to figure out how to read, that's going to make you understand your purpose, and you're going to be doing your purpose of picking that cotton or in that sugar plantation or whatever the case may be, even more so. We're going to get more out of you. When I give you a lash every morning, that's what's going to make you work even harder for me. How sick is that? How sick is that? But these are the things our ancestors had to contend with, and these are the things that they passed down generation to generation, that we now, when you got folks like like I always talk about, a Dr. Joy DeGruy, or you have this, or Stacey Patton. We talked about sparing the kids, getting rid of the whoopings out of the community. You got people doing a lot of that work, that research. The sister, Dr. Hannah, was her name? Hannah Jones, I believe. Folks who have been doing that work for years, and folks, even, of course, even before them, Dr. Amos Wilson. Okay, people talked about how all of these different things, these sick practices that we've taken on in the community, that now we know where it comes from. And here are the solutions. Here are some solutions that we can take, that we can put input in our lives, so that now we can start living our lives like a human being, the way God intended us to do. Let's grow. Number 3, last one, improve learning. Excessive noises hinders learning. Silence is essential for optimal information processing. Optimization, right? The highest level. You want to get whatever it is that you're doing, you want it optimized, you want it at a mastery level. Well, in order to be able to have that occur, especially you're trying to learn something, whatever it is, whatever craft you're trying to learn, whether you're an artist, you're an engineer, you are a chef, whatever it is you're trying to do, you have to have those moments of peace. You have to embrace the silence. And you think about it, just like I said before, our communities, those of us, we may not live out in some outskirts where we are not close to the city. A lot of us live in the city, so we're constantly hearing gunshots, arguing, cussing, fighting, sirens. And then you think about even just the pollution of just the trash, how that creates that uneasiness. It's hard for you to have that peace because you're always seeing filth. You're always seeing things that are not helpful. They're actually hurtful. And so what I'm saying to you all is that we have the ability, though, to take our power back. We have the ability now, because when we start seeing where this stuff comes from, and now we are being exposed to a lot of different people doing research on how we can actually effectively do things like bring peace, inner joy, reflectiveness into our lives. We have a responsibility now to impart that within our daily lives. So I'm gonna go ahead. I want to end right there. Like I said, that was on my heart, on my spirit, especially too. We are now in the summertime. We have a lot of ways in which we can impart peace, and of course, reading is one of those ways in which peace is actually can be attained. Right. So if you're reading books, you are taking those times to where you have that. Back in the day, we called it sustained silent reading. Y'all remember that? But then later on, they changed it to dear time, drop everything and read. So these are the reading and making sure that we're taking that time to be at peace and being still. Those are ways in which we can actually start to take ourselves to that next level, normalizing that peace. So that's what I want you all to take away from this particular episode, making sure that we're normalizing peace, and also the 3 ways in which I gave you that is beneficial for us to normalizing being still. All right. So I hope that was beneficial. I hope that you gained many nuggets and jewels from this particular episode. My intention, I'm going to be wrapping up actually this season 3, and I'm going to be going into our next season. And I'm going to share with you guys in the next couple of episodes what my intention is to where I want to take the next season into, all right, of Real Reading Talk. So I thank you all for listening once again. I'm going to go ahead and recommend a book. Again, I always talk about this book, Spare the Kids, right? I love talking about this book because this book, I believe, is truly important. And I think that we need to literally rethink how we are disciplining our children. We need to stop normalizing whooping them and beating them. We have to stop doing that. So this book, I believe, is a great way to talk about that book, talk about that particular issue, getting rid of it. Also, the other book I know I talked about before, I have finished listening to that book, that brother B.P. Fleming, Brandon Fleming. That was the book, it was called Miseducated, I believe. So that was a book I had listened to on audio as well. So I'm gonna recommend that, that you all, I think you should definitely make sure that you are reading. And I was trying to think what was the other book, but that's enough right there. I think that's enough for you guys to digest. And I would love for you guys in the comments section below, what books have you been reading? What books have you've already finished reading or you started reading this summer? Stolen Focus, that's another book. Oh yeah. Well, of course I mentioned that when I was doing the episode. And Stolen Focus, that book right there. Oh man, I have to listen to that again. That book is, I definitely feel like it's really a great eye-opener. Just again, reminding us on how all of these distractions have taken away from just us living our lives and trying to live at an optimal level. So that book, I would definitely highly recommend you guys Googling that, listening to it, or reading a physical copy of that as well. Okay, so I want you all to make sure that you take care. Make sure that you are reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave comments, and hit the notification bell as well. All right. And don't forget to go to my website, Reading is Freedom. Get your Reading is Freedom merch. I just been, doing some sales, and people have been loving the Reading is Freedom, and they like the new designs that we have on the site. Please make sure you go check it out. It literally is creating conversations. I'm gonna land on this last point. I remember I had on my Reading is Freedom shirt because I try my best as much as possible to rock my brand, my merch. So I was coming out of the store, and matter of fact, it was Walmart. And you got the person who's standing there at the door, whatever, ready to check your receipt if they need to. And he saw my shirt, and he said, yeah, he said, that is so true. And I was like, I was just like, wow, man, that made me feel good. Because number one, you have people who are paying attention to that message that's on the shirt. And then number two, people, and that's not the first time I've heard people say that, like, oh man, that is so true. Yeah, that's right. Reading is freedom. And that's exactly what I wanted the brand to do. I was like, yes. You had that vision, that idea. I was like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to spark and ignite the conversation. I want people to be like, yeah, wow, yeah, reading is freedom. Yeah, what does that look like? What does that mean? Yeah, you're right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, because it allowed me to be able to start my business. It allowed me to be able to go ahead and fill out that application. I didn't feel stuck because I know how to read. I can do anything I want. It allows me to be able to go travel, because I know that I have to have certain things set in place when I travel, and I have to be able to read and study and research. All right, so that's what I wanted that Reading is Freedom brand to do. So that really, really made me feel so good. All right, y'all. I'm out. My mouth is feeling real dry now. So you all take care. And remember to please share this episode. This is, again, another episode of Real Reading Talk. Real Reading Talk is where I discuss the real systemic issues at the very core, the very foundation, as to why there are low levels of literacy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. Thank you. My name is Miss Sasha. You all take care. Peace.